Hello everyone, welcome back. Sorry I did not make a video yesterday, but here we are now. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we have three tropical disturbances in the Atlantic currently. One in the Gulf of Mexico that has a 20% chance to develop into a tropical depression or tropical storm in the next 7 days. And then there's one back here that just came off of Africa that has a 10% chance to develop into a tropical depression or storm in the next 7 days. But this main system is going to be this one here in the orange. That actually has a 50% chance to develop into a tropical depression or named storm in the next 7 days. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at this. Starting off here with the GFS model. And if you're not sure what we're looking at, this area right in here is actually the system. Just a tropical wave is what the GFS is saying around September 4th. But we'll keep this moving, and it just gets to the south of Jamaica, and it's still not really developing too much. But we will continue this, and it makes a landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula right there. Still, it's just a tropical wave. And then it gets into the Gulf, starts to develop a little bit more, maybe gets to about tropical depression strength, maybe low-end tropical storm, and then makes a landfall in Mexico. But this GFS run doesn't really develop it. But if we go back one run, it has this developing a lot. So let's continue this here. But it does do a wonky scenario later on once we will continue this. But here's our system right here over Jamaica. But we will keep this moving. Does go over the Yucatan Peninsula, gets to about tropical storm status. Looks like it's about to make a landfall in Brownsville, Texas, as a strong tropical storm, low-end Category 1 hurricane. And then watch what this system does here. This system strengthens rapidly, so watch that number just go down there. That gets it to Category 2, borderline Category 3 hurricane, which is a major hurricane, and it actually moves it north. So it was going west, and then it just pumps the brakes and then heads north into Louisiana and makes a landfall as about a Category 3 hurricane, and then that does eventually impact portions of the southeast with that most likely a tornado risk and possibly some flooding risk as well. But next is the European model. If you're also not sure what we're looking at, once again, here's our system back here near Puerto Rico. And we'll keep this moving. It does not really develop, gets over Jamaica, starts to get some of those yellows and oranges in it, and then starts to develop a little bit more about tropical depression, low-end tropical storm status as it makes a technical landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula. Strengthens a little bit as it gets back into the Gulf, and then it really starts to strengthen on the last frame that we have into a 977 millibar Category 1, Category 2 hurricane, and it most likely would continue to strengthen as the waters are just very warm, and it was strengthening until that frame. But that is the last frame we have of the European right now. But next up is the Canadian model. Excuse me. And here comes our system back here. Doesn't really develop it too much. Still just a tropical wave. But we will keep this moving. And it starts to develop a little bit more. Maybe a tropical depression. As it's to the southwest of Jamaica on this model. Then gets to tropical storm strength, and then to a low-end Category 1 hurricane, makes a landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula, crosses over, weakened a little bit, and then starts to strengthen again in the Gulf of Mexico. And it does tick north a little bit towards Texas, and then this shows it re-intensifying into most likely a strong Category 1 hurricane and making a landfall in portions of Mexico, but that does affect a large area of South Texas. Next up is the icon model. Here's our system back here to the southeast of Puerto Rico, and we will keep this moving. Doesn't really do too much, but it just continues to move this westward. It gets it over Jamaica, and still just doesn't really develop it too much. And then on that last frame, our system is right there near the Yucatan Peninsula. But there is another system, that system actually on the Gulf, that is right about here. I do want to talk about that system a little bit. A good amount of models have been showing it developing into a tropical storm or a depression. So let's skip the icon model back here, and that's where this system would be, right here, right off the coast of Texas. And then we will keep this moving. Gets it over the Gulf of Mexico, and the icon doesn't really develop it too much. Maybe strengthens it just a little bit, but I mean, maybe tropical depression status, but doesn't really do too much on this model run. But I do think this system in the Gulf has a smaller chance to develop, but I could see it developing possibly into a depression or maybe even a weak tropical storm, so we will have to watch out for that. Next up is our severe weather outlook. We have a large area of showers and storms across Kentucky, West Virginia, and even up into Pennsylvania. We have a few severe thunderstorm warnings, and those are being warned for 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail. But we also have a severe thunderstorm watch in portions of West Virginia and Pennsylvania, and there is a 60% chance for 6 or more combined severe hail/wind events. And I would make that larger on the screen here if I could, but sadly I cannot. Next up is the day 1 severe weather risk. We have a slight risk in portions of West Virginia, Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And that has a less than 2% tornado risk, a 15% wind risk, and then a 5% hail risk. And then there's a separate marginal risk that is on the U.S.-Canadian border with a 5% wind risk and then a less than 5% hail risk. And then there's also a day 2 marginal risk that includes portions all the way from Rhode Island all the way down into North Georgia. That has a less than 2% tornado risk, a 5% wind risk, and then it has a less than 5% hail risk. So one more look at the Atlantic hurricane outlook. I'm going to refresh this. Maybe we got an update and we do not. But yeah, just a 20% chance in the Gulf of Mexico for that system to develop as of now. A 10% chance for this system that just came off of Africa to develop. And then this main system with a 50% chance to develop. And the National Hurricane Center does say that there could be a tropical depression that could form in the next several days into the later week. So with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.